You're listening to Jargon Free Radio, brought to you by Little Voice Media, the video and audio specialists.
Hello again, everybody. It's Steve B here again, taking up some more of your valuable time. It's this month's edition, you'll be pleased to hear, I'm sure, of Jargon Free Radio, your very own pensions radio station, where we talk to people about all the ins and outs of pensions and what's going on. This month, I'm so pleased to be able to invite along to speak in our studio here in London my good friend John Moret. John will be better known to most of you as Mr. Sip, although today he tells me he's no longer called Mr. Sip, but rather the grandfather of Sips in the UK. John currently is running his own consultancy called More to Sips, which you may have heard of, and he's also the chairman of the Pensions Network, as well as various other far too long to mention grand titles he's got with various businesses. John, delighted that you can join us today.
Delighted to be here, Steve, and looking forward to talking about all the many things that are happening in the world of pensions right now, and giving you some of my views. Well,
that's what you're here for. I mean, your views are, I mean, everyone knows my views, but they tune in anyway. But our guests are what people really come to hear. And this week, just so everybody listening knows, is probably, or it's been described in Daily Telegraph as the most momentous week in pensions for the last 100 years. This is the week of the 1st of October, which came and went on Monday, just gone. We're recording it just after that. The automatic enrolment revolution in pensions, which I don't think can be understated in its importance, has already kicked off. The very first people have hit their staging dates. Do you feel any different after that, John, or is it leaving you
I suppose I should say I do. I can't say it's actually hit me hugely at a personal level, and having been involved in the world of pensions for over 40 years, I'm not sure I would yet see it as and describe it as the most momentous occasion in the last 100 years. I can only think, obviously, of the last 40, and there have been one or two other occurrences over that time in the world of pensions that might more justifiably, perhaps, right now attract that title. But having said all that, yes, it is potentially a hugely significant day, month development. I guess the next 3 to 5 years will actually determine just how significant it ultimately becomes.
Well, that's right, isn't it? Here we are in 2012. This has got to be seen through by this government, and whatever government follows it, halfway through the process, I suppose. But it was put in place, wasn't it, by Gordon Brown's government back in 2008, really, 2007, 2008. It's here now with the current coalition. It's hard to see anybody going. It seems to me that once you've started auto-enrolling some people, you can't stop, can you? Because you can't have half the workforce auto-enrolled and the other half not. And what do we do about not having a state second pension anymore? How would that work? It seems that once you've started this, you must complete the process, mustn't you?
One would like to think so. I suppose again. Sort of history has taught me never to be 100% confident in the political process. But yeah, you're right that momentum will grow. I guess where I'm less sure is not so much on the impact of auto-enrolment itself. What I'm perhaps in a way less sure about is where does that actually sit in the bigger world of savings and tax-relieved savings and what have you. So question mark over that in terms of politically what are the intentions there, and I don't think we've seen the last of changes.
No, well, I mean, we've been on the platform together over the years, here, there and everywhere, notably lately at the Pensions Network, which I mentioned in the introduction, which is something we may touch on a bit later. Sure. Sort of one of the best kept secrets of the pensions world is that there is this Pensions Network that a few of us have been members of for a long, long time. But where do you stand on this issue, which I think has been bubbling along for a while, but even the current Minister, Steve Webb, has been bringing up quite often in the last couple of years since he's been in the job, this idea of ISAs and pensions becoming the same thing. I mean, you talked about tax advantage savings. why do we need an ISA and a pension? Why not have a pension ISA? Or David Willits, I think, was talking a few years ago about his LISA, wasn't it? Lifetime savings.
Absolutely. We've had individual pension accounts or something, IPAs. About 10 years ago.
We had that as well. Only one was sold.
Yeah, that's right. Great success.
I've forgotten all
Great
about
success.
that. Yeah.
Where do I stand on it? I think if we were starting again, then it would be a no-brainer. You would only have one savings vehicle. You don't need two. The difficulty, as always seems to be the case, is the sort of issue around legacy and the fact that you've got however many million of people with pension entitlements at the moment, and therefore if you start to change the rules, what do you do with the legacy? Not impossible to resolve that, but no light undertaking. Simplistically, I just believe that there's a gap, a growing gap between the haves and the have-nots in the pensions world. Maybe auto-enrolment will start to fill and reduce that gap. But I still struggle with the position of people going into their first job, potentially significant debt, pressure over time to get on the housing ladder. Interesting, obviously, some very recent suggestions as to how people like me might actually help my children out in that regard, or my grandchildren out. I mean, he's only 2 at the moment, so I've got a few years to.
He won't be buying his first house for 2 or 3 years.
No, absolutely not. But I think you've got issues there, and ISAs are the natural place.
I think I've heard all this before. I'm probably out of step with everybody, but that won't surprise you to know that. That's kind of what I do.
Jargon Free Radio with pension guru Steve B.
We didn't say these sort of things about the national insurance system, did we? I mean, you're auto-enrolled into national insurance. I mean, it's not that. I mean, I know it's convenient for politicians these days to forget that we've had the state second pension, but all these people they're sweeping into pension saving have actually always been in it. It's just that they've been in a state-run scheme called the S2P lately, and before that, SERPs. So for 50 years, half a century, the state's been drawing money from people at work and their employers and putting it into a pension scheme. Okay, it's not funded, but that's what they've been doing. Now what they're saying is, we're going to stop that. State second pension will go away and become part of the basic pension eventually. We're going to stop that, but instead we're going to auto-enroll people into private saving. It's the same thing, isn't it? Nobody said when the national insurance system was introduced, oh, we've got houses to pay for, we don't earn much. You're auto-enrolled into saving. We've all been auto-enrolled into the national insurance system. What's the difference?
The climate is different, I would say, and I mean, when I set out, pensions, DC pensions were the exception rather than the norm. In my part of the industry, financial services, non-contributory DB pensions were the norm. Yeah, fantastic. The world was very different. It was paternalism was still very much the name of the game. You looked after your employees. One way of attracting employees was to offer them an attractive pension offering. I think the proposition there is quite different. That's not to say that they aren't, and the initiative isn't to be welcomed. I suppose for me that the real test, and it applies to all DC pensions, is it's about outcomes, and it's very early days, 2 days, 3 days in.
Outcomes depend entirely on inputs, don't they? You only get out what you put in, and that is a serious issue with these reforms. The amount of money that will be going in, even when we get to the full contribution levels, is still very low at 8%. I mean, it sounds a lot of money, but 8% won't get you the equivalent of a final salary pension. The going rate, they reckon, for a final salary pension, in terms of payroll cost to an employer, is around 23%. 8% is about a third of that. So you're not going to get a 60th of final salary from auto-enrolment.
What's interesting, and I've not seen any sort of analysis of this in terms of the likely impact on other savings vehicles. So is auto-enrolment actually going to add to our overall savings. One hopes it will. But will there be an erosion of savings into, for example, ISAs as a result of people saving into pensions? I would have thought there must be a chance of that happening. Is that a good thing? Probably not. And what are the tax implications? And from the Exchequer point of view, would they rather have people saving in an ISA, or would they rather have people saving in a pension?
I've never understood that. I mean, I don't have an ISA, but if you've got one, I'll assume you might have an ISA. I don't know if you have. I'm not asking. You could take the proceeds of that ISA and buy a car with it, if you like.
I could.
Why am I paying tax so that you can buy a car?
Why are you paying tax?
Yeah, you get tax relief on. I'm a taxpayer.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Hopefully everybody is, but I'm a taxpayer. I'm paying tax so you can buy a car. I can see why I'd want to pay tax so you could provide yourself with a pension, because that will save me or someone like me paying tax one day to support you.
Yeah.
So I can buy into that. Why am I giving you tax relief on things? You go on holiday with your ISA money. Why am I paying for your holiday in my tax bill?
Very good question. I hadn't sort of looked at my ISA savings quite in that way, so I obviously have to think again. But I guess you can turn it round, though, can't you? On accepting the point about pensions being for the long term, and therefore it's a generational thing, if you like. Whereas ISAs, the way they've been constructed, are more of a short-term nature. But for me, the anomaly is the fact that the statistics show that many people actually save long term through ISAs.
I've seen that too, and I think what this comes down to is a matter of control. People will put money where they can control it, and the sad thing about pensions, I know you've been involved in SIPs, so that they're all about control, but the sad thing for most people don't have SIPs, for most people, their pensions are beyond their control, aren't they? You have to do what you're told. And I think this mixture between the good of saving in the long term and everybody buying into being happy to pay tax relief to help anybody else do that. If you're doing the right thing by yourself, by saving in a pension, you're also doing the right thing by the rest of us. And I think that's right, that the tax system should help. But if you've got no earthly use of that money all the time while you're living what most people would call your life, your active life before you become a pensioner, then why would anybody put money away where they've got no control over it and no access to it? So I think some kind of blending of what you are able to do with your pension, which is why I don't disagree with what the government said the other day when they were flying that idea of why don't we allow people to use their tax-free cash for this purpose or that purpose. In fact, I'd say let people use their tax-free cash for any purpose.
So would I.
At any time.
And I did say that when they consulted, but we were in the minority.
Unfortunately.
That's
why people are interested in our views.
And I think the government understandably have said, or I thought they'd said until last weekend or whenever it was, that basically that's off the agenda.
Is that what they've said now?
No. I think previous to that, after the consultation on accessing your tax-free cash, they basically said, well, we've consulted on that. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm, so we've put that in the out tray or whatever. But maybe it's back on the agenda. But quite what and how this will emerge in terms of any sort of rules around when you can access it, whatever, be interesting to see. I think it's got limited appeal, but I guess if they do open the door to that, then maybe that's a stepping stone to more access.
But I think the more access people have to their own money, I mean, our pension legislation should start with a sentence that says this is people's own money, I think.
And that's winding the clock back 40 years, that's a huge change. That wasn't how pensions were regarded when I first started in the DB scheme.
Winding the clock back even further, I mean, I had no say in whether I lived on Earth or not. I was auto-enrolled into it. Right? And we're all the same. We're also, as part of that bargain, auto-enrolled into becoming old. And there is an opt-out, but it's not, not anything that people would be interested in.
Jargon Free Radio with pension guru Steve B.
Given that we are going to become old, I mean, pensions are a serious issue for a growing number of us, aren't they? I mean, the fact is, more people now reach the optimum age. So almost everybody listening to this programme will reach what in years gone by would have been called great old age. And the question is, do you seriously think that you're putting enough money aside for those times, which will be very different to those days when you're at work and awash with cash?
I mean, that's a really interesting point. I mean, it's a subject I feel quite strongly on. Over the last 2 years, really, since I sort of moved into semi-retirement, although my wife doesn't describe it in that way. But
she thought you were already in it.
The whole issue of increasing longevity as a subject is something that's interested me more and more, I guess, because I'm moving into that area, generation. There is a huge educational need, I believe, around longevity and the impact of longevity on individuals. And it's not just, I mean, savings and the impact on savings, lack of savings is very important, but it's actually wider than that. It goes into its health, wealth, and every aspect of your life, and obviously that leads into other areas like long-term care, and so there's healthy longevity and unhealthy longevity, and in fact the real issues are more around the unhealthy longevity than the healthy longevity in my view. But if you haven't got enough for your healthy longevity, then you've got a real problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the Pensions Network, which we've mentioned a couple of times, you're the esteemed chairman of that august body. I'm on the board of it, as you probably know, but purely by accident, as far as I can work out. But we speak about all sorts of things at those meetings. I know they're private meetings between a group of people that are in the know, if you like, in the pensions world. But one of our previous guests on the radio programme here was Aubrey de Grey, Professor, and I first saw him at the Pensions Network.
Absolutely.
And over the years I've seen some speakers there like him who quite literally taken my breath away. Now we're privileged, aren't we, because you in particular, as you chair the whole thing and you choose the guests. We have a couple of days away where we hear the most amazing stuff and thought-provoking things. But the average person never gets to hear about that because it doesn't make the newspapers, does it? It's got nothing to do with, Britain's Got Talent or anything like that.
No,
So,
I mean, it's a talking shop really for people in the pensions industry, but I think it's incredibly valuable. I really enjoy it because of the quality of the speakers and the quality of the debate and discussion. Because of the nature of the event, it's been described as the sort of pensions equivalent of Gleneagles. For those in financial services will know there's this summit that happens at Gleneagles every year, to which I've never been invited, but I gather, Steve, you have.
I spoke there once, but only once.
Once is enough. But no, coming back to the Pensions Network, it has a role which is primarily the networking side, but we are looking to try and enhance its profile, and obviously we run it with a limited membership, but obviously if there are people listening who are interested, go to the website. I'll get it wrong if I try and give you the website now, but it's just Google the Pensions Network and you'll find it, and it will tell you all about it if you're interested.
And do you have papers on I know I should know, but are there papers on the website that people can read?
All the...
because it just seems to me this is of wider interest.
A huge amount of interesting information there. So as I say, the website is, as usual, the fount of all knowledge. So
this is another hidden gem in the pensions world that we've uncovered here on Jargon Free Radio. John, thanks very much.
Pleasure, as always.
Enjoyed chatting over the issues, and what an important week to do it. Anybody who enjoyed that, come back and listen to our next podcast. Please come along. We'll be interviewing Greg McClement, who's currently the Shadow Pensions Minister for the Labour Party. See you then, I hope.
To Jargon Free Radio, Little Voice Media, the video and audio specialists.